Hey everybody, welcome back to Game Day Grace. David Schiele here with you, and Cory Mose is on his way to the Cotton Bowl because those Texas Longhorns that he covers are in the national semifinals. I'm not going to get into what my Georgia Bulldogs did because I'm still a little bit embarrassed by it, but it's all good. We've got a dynamic and powerful woman of God joining us on the Believers Bench today. Courtney Tate is here all the way in the West Coast because you recently started a new position. Tell us about it. What did you just level up into?
I right now I'm officially covering the NBA for Sports Illustrated, and we also covered Newsweek with the LA Sports Report. I don't even really understand how I landed there. It just kind of happened, but it's a great thing. We cover the Lakers, which has been phenomenal, especially right now. You know, I grew up as a LeBron fan, so to be able to just make that my day to day is super cool. We also cover the Bucks, Celtics, Pacers, so some really good teams to also have in our repertoire. So that's just like my day to day now is just heads in the streets writing articles. Right now it's a writing base, so I do a lot of journalistic sports journalism. But as I progress and get more comfortable on the writing scale, we will start to incorporate video and television. So it's just a really cool thing to be a part of right now.
Which is something you're used to. You've been on the broadcast side before.
Yeah.
We're in the middle of a sports journalist in the faith series, and so just kind of give us the background that you have broadcast and writing leading up to where you are now, and then how the faith has been incorporated in all of that, because that's, as we know in this business, that means a lot of moving.
Yeah. No, for sure. So I grew up in a very small town. I grew up in Morganton, North Carolina. It's right outside of the Asheville mountainous area. So our town population is like, honestly, I don't even think we're in the six figures of population there. It's really, really small. But I grew up playing sports. I grew up just having my dad in my life, in his side of the family. So luckily, like I had my grandmother, my aunts there, but for the main part of like the most significant part of my life growing up, it was really just me and him. So I played sports, and I just kind of fell in love with them as a child. Like I would get in trouble in middle school and high school because I would be arguing sports in the back of the classroom while the teacher was teaching, and as if like I was Shannon Sharp or Stephen A on First Take. So I just kind of grew a love for that for a very young age. I knew that I wanted to pursue that as a career just because honestly nothing else made sense to me. I'm not good at math, not good at science, and didn't like anything else for real. I enjoyed writing, enjoyed English, so I pursued a journalism career. But I also knew that I wanted to go to an HBCU, which was kind of like a foreign concept where we're from, especially spreading my wings and going so far as Howard, which is where I ended up, and going to DC. I'd never even been on a plane before I started pursuing Howard. So, that alone is where I really had to just, lean into faith. And thankfully, I grew up in a setting where church was kind of mandatory in our household. So my grandmother, I would stay on the weekends every weekend with them, and she just made sure rain, sleet, or snow, you literally at that point had to be like on your sick bed, really, really 105 temperature for her to say, okay, you're not going to Sunday school this morning. So it was that serious for us. And while I didn't really understand it as much growing up, how important my faith was, I started to see it very early on as I started to branch out, that there was going to be some having to lean on a stronger understanding in order to make the things that I had goals for myself set out, um, to make those come true. And I, came from a place where people didn't really understand my dreams either. They're like, there's no chance you're going to get on TV. Like, girl, you from Morganton? Like, how are you? Like, you're going to DC? Like, what are you, like, you've never been to a big city like that. It's just, none of this makes sense. So the only thing that I knew to do was to believe in the things and the foundation that I had spiritually, to be able to spread my wings. And it was the best thing that I could have done. I immediately got to Howard. I landed my first internship my freshman year with the Washington Wizards of all things. And if you could ever tell me how I got that internship, I have no idea to this day. So when I think about blind faith and when I think about favor and I think about things that cover you in the blood, I was covered from day one. So I landed at Howard, and ironically enough, I hate to tell this story because, it's kind of, not a good thing, but I was out partying freshman year, like the first week that I got there, and apparently, like, I was just telling some person just about all of the things, all of the dreams that I had, and the person I had to be happened to be speaking to happened to work for the Wizards, and he was like, you know what, this girl could use an internship. So I don't even remember having this conversation with him, like, so a week later the person hits me up like, hey, you have an interview, or I spoke for you, you seem like you were super super dedicated to your passion, like, we were at a party and the only thing you're talking about is how much you love sports and how much you want to be a sports reporter, so I thought it was the best thing for me to try and get you in here. And I nailed the interview, and freshman year I was working for the Wizards. It was just a crazy thing. And from there, my career just kind of spiraled. I started building my resume, making the right connections. I started, reporting at UMD with the multimedia company that I just randomly met through networking out there. I had my own radio show. I had, worked for SB Nation. So I just did a lot of journalism and writing things there. And that kind of propelled me into where I landed my first job, which was actually in LA at ESPN. So I left Howard, went to LA. And from there, I just kind of took off, and sports reporting just became like my thing. And that's just where I am now.
Was there ever a period where you were kind of in between jobs and you had to deal with kind of like fear and doubt, or, just trying to understand where your next steps were, even though I guess deep down you knew God had his hand on you?
Oh, 1000%. I feel that every time it's time to move on, or it's time, I feel like like, in this business, nothing should last forever. And while you're moving up, like, the goal is to not stay anywhere as long as possible. So if you're on a 1 to 2 to 3 year based contract, like, your goal is to move up, not extend. So that was always my thing. I'm not gonna extend many opportunities because I just want to continue to level up. So I'm going to do everything that I can in these 1 to 2 to 3 years to make sure that I don't have to spend 6 years in somewhere that I don't want to stay, There have been also times in my career where the opportunity was ended without me wanting to end. So I remember in COVID, Sinclair Broadcasting just had this huge company-wide employee sweep, and I was working at a station in Portland, Maine, WGME CBS 13, and I was like a newer employee there, but we were at the thick of COVID, and when you're somebody that's wanting to cover sports and there's really no sports, or, or if you're a newer employee in a local TV station, like, unfortunately, like, sometimes that just happens. And I remember, like, feeling like, what am I about to do now? And it's like every single time I've felt like that, because I felt like that before in college. Like, I put myself through school. I didn't get any money from Howard, which is another hesitation that my entire family told me, which is a horrible thing because Howard is one of the most expensive schools in the country, HBCU or not. That tuition is steep. But I decided to work my way through it. So I would intern and go to school through the day, and I would waitress at night and sleep maybe 1 or 2, 3 hours at night and get back up and try and fight for another day. But there were times at Howard where I didn't get the balance paid before the classes registration wasn't ready, or, before it was time to get new classes, and I didn't think I was going to be able to go back. And if you go home, it's like an unspoken thing. I don't know what if it was like at Hampton, but if you have to go home for a semester, it's hard to fight your way back into school. Like, it's a lot of people don't get to come back to Howard, and I've seen that. And when I was a freshman, our president at the time told us to look to our left and look to our right, and they said the person that you're looking at might not be here when you graduate. And that easily could have been me. However, I just have seen really real life miracles happen. Like, there was one year where I just had a $7,000 balance, wasn't going to be able to register for the next semester's classes. The very last day, the very next day, I look on my Bison account, and the balance is gone. I have no idea how that balance left. No, couldn't explain that to you. I could never explain it to you. The hold was lifted the next day. And I'm like, what? How did this happen? I'm calling admin, like nobody's answering. And I'm just like, I'm just not gonna worry about it. I'm just gonna I'm just gonna register, like, and I'm gonna come back. And literally I'm like, I have anxiety. Like, that was weird. Like, like when I'm going to classes next semester, I'm like, I wonder if they're about to boot me out of these classes because they found that balance somehow or something, but it never came back.
Wow. I mean, first of all, because there's so many things there that are so interesting. Like the $7,000 balance is already like, okay, how did that get cleared? We'll never know. We praise God
We'll
for
never
that,
know.
though.
We'll never
Praise
know.
God, though, right? Because it was cleared no matter what. But then also you were talking about internship with the Wizards, school, waitress, and then like maybe, a few hours of sleep. How did you even just, survive through that? Because that sounds insane.
Well, it was. Well, while it felt insane, I felt like the kids at Howard were just as busy as me, but in a more distractive way. So while, it was cool on Thursday nights to go to U Street and go to a bar where drinks are $1 and everybody's there all night long, I'm at the Cheesecake Factory making money, So it's like, I'm probably just as tired, if not less tired, because I'm not drinking and partying as much. I'm probably just as tired, just busy in a different way. So I just kept myself busy, but like, I didn't get to experience kind of all of the fun, quote unquote, things that you might go to college for. But I don't think I was missing out. I did that when I was in a freshman. I tried to, my dad was very strict on me. He did not, I was very sheltered. So I tried to go out and, just experience DC, living in a city, and it just wasn't fulfilling anyway. So, especially when you don't really have any money to spend so it's like the best thing that I could have done for myself is to busy up my schedule, because if I wasn't at work, I would have been, out probably doing things that I shouldn't have been doing that could have gotten me in more trouble than I could have been in. So, it was just how I decided to get my way through college. And once I'm a survivor. So, I've always been surviving. Like, my we don't have much. So I've been working since I was able to work when I was 15, also playing 3 sports in school. So it was never not something that I'm not used to. So I was kind of built for the life that I created for myself.
Okay, yeah, you was just built for that.
I'm
Built
just a
different.
hustler. Yeah, I'm just a
Yeah,
hustler.
yeah, just built different. Just built different.
Just built it.
These days, obviously, you're not having to go to classes and waitress or anything anymore. Praise God, right? Because you have such an amazing opportunity to cover the NBA and the best teams in the association. How do you balance that with spending time in the Word, or time in prayer or serving, or however you fulfill your spiritual appetite?
Yeah, so that's something that I like have to work on every single day. And it's like your spirit will feel guilty. Like when you pray for the opportunities and you get the opportunities, you have to also remain in the spirit. So that's something that, like, praising God through the good times, like that's something that you don't want to forget to do. So, even especially now, because when I wasn't working, like it was so easy for me to be committed to just my word, waking up in the morning, like, which is something that, I very have been active on trying to ask for help in, because it's so easy for just natural to wake up and start scrolling through your phone, like looking at catching up what you missed while you were asleep. And then you just kind of get into a setting where you just forget your purpose. You're like, you wake up and you forget who woke you up, like, and so that's something that I have been trying to actively seek, more strength in. It's just making sure to actively stay fervent in the word while I am not experiencing like too much triumph or too much turmoil.
Absolutely. And I think, the turn of a new year is always a good time to, like, mentally, you're just like, okay, this is like a fresh start, to really kind of focus in on that. My church is doing a 21-day fast. Apparently they
Mine
do it every
too.
year.
I'm on it.
Yep. We doing a 21-day fast. And Pastor keeps saying it'll be your best year ever if it's your best year spiritually. So if you set yourself up spiritually the right way to begin a year, then you'll set yourself up for a really good year in the natural, just because you are supernaturally equipped with everything else. So we're doing a little 21-day fast. You mentioned scrolling on social media. That's one of the things I'm fasting from. I got a little
Nice.
limit. It's a 5-minute limit on social media, and that's only so I can post for this podcast or
Yeah.
communicate with people like you, to come on and talk with us. That's it. I got 5 minutes, so I don't even have
I
time to
wanted to do
scroll.
social media so bad. Like it is
Yeah.
like really, really calling my spirit to just let go of social media. Like I just find it to be so distracting sometimes. However, it's so difficult because you know, I have to keep my ear into the media at all times. So I'm like, is there a way to like curate it where I can only look at sports? Like, I don't want to see the other stuff. I just want to see what the stuff that's going to work for my job. Is that an excuse? Like these are things that I'm like actively battling with because I'm like, I can go on Yahoo News, but Twitter is the best thing for me in terms of live sports reactions. Like I get most of my stuff. No, Instagram. I don't even think I need Instagram. Instagram is something that I could probably let go, but it like with my career and with what I have to do every day to day, like the minute somebody gets hurt, I have to go and run to Twitter and see what happened, like or see what's so that is something that I'm just really really like trying to like figure out something for, because social media is just I just don't I see the bad in it all for sure, but I also like see what I need from it, so it just sucks.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, so this actually is not my first time fasting from social media while being in this business. Actually, while being in this specific job that I have here in Tampa, and people were so confused. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're fasting from social media? Like, how does that even make sense? And to be honest, the way that I get around it is I just have everyone relevant notifications on. So there are certain, beat writers and teams and whatever, like, all right, if they do something or something happens, I'm just going to get a direct notification of what they posted. And then I can read that. Instead of scrolling now, I just have all of your posts, like all y'all tweets are just right here as part of my notifications, as if it was a text message of like, oh, okay, this just happened, this just happened, this just happened, this just happened, instead of scrolling. Because you know how it is now. They got that For You page that it defaults to, and you getting distracted by all the things that it knows you're interested in. The algorithm's just pushing all kind of other mess instead of the
Mhm.
content that's relevant. And so that's been the way that I've done it. Same thing as you. Instagram, don't really need that. That's just been kind of a self-serving thing. The healthiest month or time period that I had mentally was when I was off of Instagram. I was part of this program, and they told us to delete social media for 30 days. He was like, 30 days. That was the first time I really fasted from it. And I deleted it off my phone. And mentally, I had like the best month ever, and actually extended that 30 days into like 90. Um,
Wow.
and it was just like 90 days. I was not on Instagram. I didn't feel like I was missing
What did you
anything.
replace it with?
Oh, that's a good question. Really, a lot of YouTube. I'm gonna be for real. Like, instead of scrolling on Instagram, just watching random stuff, I actually replaced it with a lot of YouTube. And the thing is, now YouTube has good and bad. Sometimes there's videos that's like, all right, I ain't really need to watch that, because now they have the reels. They got the YouTube reels on there, or
Oh, I
shorts,
didn't know.
and you could just scroll on there. But instead, there's a lot of like educational videos that's just on YouTube. People make mini documentaries all the time. You've got platforms like this that are also on YouTube. So you've got podcasts and really good interviews and different things. I've been a while ago. It still shows up on my homepage, but there were a lot of apologetics videos. So a lot of videos of people making a defense for the faith. A lot of people arguing against skeptics about the faith, and that kind of whole thing of just like going back and forth, and that's just something that has been part of my story of I did not meet kind of like I didn't grow up in a small of a town as you, but I grew up in the Bible Belt, and so everybody around me was Christian as far as I knew. Like everybody was at church, everybody was going to church, and then it wasn't until I got to sixth grade. It wasn't until the sixth grade where I met someone who was not a Christian. They were Muslim. And then I met someone else who was not a Christian. They were Sikh. So I met, two people. Okay, they weren't Christian, but they had faith. It wasn't until I got to high school, so the ninth grade, where I encountered people that had no faith. Or they do have faith, but it ain't in a supernatural power. They just have faith in their mental process, essentially. And so I was like, I had never encountered that ever. And they were asking questions that honestly now are just like softballs and low-hanging fruit, and you could knock that out of the park. But at the time, it really bothered me that they were talking about, I don't know why you're serving a God when there's evil in the world. I don't know why you're serving a God that we can't see and hasn't made himself evident. I don't know why you would believe in Jesus. If he came back from the dead, he would just be a zombie, that kind of thing. And now, watching these different videos of like Dr. Frank Turek or anybody else, like Mike Winger, people like that who are just so incredibly educated and sold out for the faith. Or there's another page called Daily Dose of Wisdom, and the guy who hosts that used to be atheist, like he used to be. And now he's like, he is all 10 toes down for the faith. That man loves him some Jesus, which to him kind of blows his mind because he didn't think he would ever get there. But yeah, I watch them and they're so wise. And that's really what I replaced a lot of that Instagram with, was just watching them. And so it was actually feeding my spirit during that time. And then the other thing that I fasted from, that I'm also fasting from now, is secular music, just to get like a detox, which that was a challenge that came from Jackie Hill Perry, who just said like, I dare anybody listening out there, go 30 days, no secular music. And that doesn't mean listen to only gospel music or something, but just don't listen to secular music. Like if you want to listen to Christian hip hop, CCM, old school gospel podcasts, whatever it is, by all means, but just go 30 days without secular music and see how your appetite changes. And my appetite did change. Like you become so sensitive to lyrics that you're like, oh snap, I did not know I was listening to that, regularly. And things will just kind of appear to you. And so I'm actually fasting from that again now. That's because amazing. Once that Kendrick Drake beef popped off, I was right back into hip hop. I was like a hip hop head, and for a minute I was just an R&B person. I was like, this new hip hop getting on my nerves. I can't do it.
I can't digest a lot of it. I'll tell you that for sure.
Yeah, it was like, I don't understand these new kids. They just saying random stuff. It don't make no sense. And then
I don't even know any of them. My little cousins, they'll try to put me on to all kinds of new stuff. I'm like, listen.
I don't know what that is. You know what I'm saying? And it sounds crazy.
And my dad's an old school hip hop head, so he, I still have a very, very fine taste for Jay-Z albums and J. Cole albums.
Yeah, and so like once that Kendrick,
I can see that would be something that is very, very like prominent. That's a huge thing to give up. That's great.
Oh yeah, no, it's huge. And like I said, I got right back into hip hop once that beef popped off, and I was like, oh man, now I'm wrapped up. And then Kendrick ended up dropping an album recently, and I was like, oh okay, I'm right back into it. But then it's like, okay, you know what? Let me slow down and let me find some music that actually feeds my spirit. I know a lot of people think certain songs like, oh, this song feeds my spirit, and it's like a hip hop song that seems really encouraging and whatnot. And I'm not saying all secular songs are bad and all secular songs are sin, but if you just take 30 days off of secular music, right, and you feed yourself with other like Christian hip hop artists or just other things that are fulfilling to the spirit and not necessarily the flesh, just see what happens after those 30 days. Like,
it's crazy. We listen to hip hop a lot because of the beats, but a lot of these new Christian rappers take on some of those natural hip hop beats that we love and just have great music. I've heard some. I'm like, oh, this is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, who is this? And it's the whole time. It's a entire. I'm like, oh, okay, he's saying some stuff, and the whole song is a Christian. And I had no idea until the end of the song, and I'm like, he really just rapped like a
Yes.
trap beat and told me about Jesus. That's so cool.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That was my main excuse in high school because our youth pastor in the teen ministry would always ask us, "How come y'all don't listen to Christian hip hop? Why y'all listening to ASAP Rocky and Drake and J. Cole and all that?" And we were like, "Cause the beat." That was our main excuse.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I like the beat. I like the beat. And at the time, look, the Christian hip hop beats were corny. I don't know what was going on.
Yeah.
They were really corny. Like
It was
they
like
weren't
Disney rap. It
cool.
was like Disney pop.
Yeah, it was just like I'm not feeling that, right? But I think I don't know what happened, but some of these young producers who are Christians who came up, however they came up, they started producing Christian hip hop beats. Like
Yeah.
these young beat makers started making those
They're
instead
figuring
of
it out. They're figuring it
right.
out.
They
Figuring out
started
the
making some beats, and I really think it was just a youth movement of like, all right, here's what young people are listening to. If they like the beat so much, let's just make these type of beats.
Hello.
And
I
then
tried to
just,
explain that. I mean, and this is why I love my church so much that I go to now. And I love the church that I grew up in, that, they are like family to me. However, I used to have to, growing up, try and encourage them to, they're looking for more ways to get more young people in the church. Like our church had gotten to a point where everybody was growing older. Kids were leaving. As they got older, they would become teenagers and they would stop coming. Like parents would stop making them come. So our church looked like it was dying a little bit. And I'm like, well, if you guys want to attract more young people, you guys have to start to cater to the young people. Do things that are going to, like traditional order of service, the Decalogue, the standing up. We're Methodist, AME. And it's just like that's not what young people are going to church for. And if you want to keep young people in the church, you got to have something that speaks to them, even if it's not changing everything up, switching everything up of how you guys do, because I know that's going to be next to impossible, seeing that most of the congregation is over 60 plus, but some changing the choir, music is something that really, really speaks to young people. And if you're up there singing, hymns from the hymnal book still, they're not going to want to come. I'm just not. Give them a dance team, get a drummer, get something that's going to speak to the young people, get an associate pastor where once a Sunday he can do youth Sunday for, things that can implement that's going to bring people back to the church. It's not like young people hate the church. For one, like parents, like our generation of parents have stopped making us go to church. Like my grandmother made me go to church. A lot of my friends that I grew up with, their parents didn't make them go to church because they didn't want to go to church. They left the church from their parents forcing them. But I that was just something that I really try to encourage. I encourage a lot of things. Like I try to tell my grandmother this. It's not that kids don't want to go to church. I see so many young people like loving to serve God, loving to praise God but it's just, if you want them there, for one, it has to stop being an option. In growing as a grown-up, you have to lay the foundation in your kids while you have them in-house, so that when they get on their own, we don't have to strive to bring them back. Like that's just they've never strayed away too far. How when we grow up in a church setting, there's no straying away too far. Like we've always knew where to come back home to, and that's because that's how we were raised. But when you raise people differently, they can't stray away far. So that needs to stop. Option A, make those kids go to church, for one. But for two, those churches need to start to do things that help make people want to stay in the church, like drop the toxic, start to be a little bit more progressive, and keep the church going. You don't want the church to be a dead thing,
Yeah, I mean it's a balance, you know what I mean? Like it's hard to fully go with what some people call like the seeker sensitive route, which is always just, we're going to have a super fluffy, Disney World type approach to church where we're trying to just entertain you. Because at the end of the day, the word has to be preached, right?
For
like
sure.
God has to be praised, you know what I'm saying? And so I think there's a balance of like, trying to keep some things traditional, and then trying to do things in a way that people are drawn in and they want to keep coming back. Like how do you
No,
do that?
one
How
thousand
do you
percent, one
walk
thousand.
how do you walk that fine line? Because like you don't want to go full entertainment because it's not a show, but you don't want to be stuck in your old ways.
It's
So
not a
it's
show. It's
hard.
not a show,
Yeah.
but I definitely think that. Well, for I just think personally for me, praise and worship is
Mm-hmm.
something of how I personally felt most connected to Christ. Like that's where I had my most personal encounters is when praise and worship has just been on point. And that's something for me, like in my car, I'm loving to blast gospel music to the like out my windows, just screaming, because that's just something that's so important to me. I feel like yes, praise and worship can get a little showy in terms of like all the strobe lights now and the like I don't mind a good old Mississippi Mass choir. I really really don't. I love that. I do think again, however, in terms of like just traditional Baptists and Methodists, we are losing people that are choosing to go the more religious route of church as opposed to just faith-based spiritual churches now, just because of how they are not connecting with the audience anymore. Like whether or not the word is good, the order of service is an hour, to get to the word, which is really like I loved again everything about the people there, but I did not enjoy standing up for the Decalogue, sitting down, standing up for the for this, sitting down, standing up for another hymnal, sitting. I just felt like, come on, y'all, we can change up a little, things, and I feel like that's why personally, why we're just seeing people turn away, just because again sometimes traditional religious things can be a little off-putting now for people of our younger generation, and I just want them to be able to experience Christ in the way that other our few past generations have experienced Christ.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing that you keep drawing back to religious things, and you're right. Like just because you're doing them doesn't make them like. Is there a scriptural basis for this?
Yeah.
Like, how is this honoring Christ? Like, what are we really doing? It's
What are we
just
doing? Yeah.
tradition. Yeah, it's just tradition at that point. And that's true. It's like, oh well, we have to. Well, no, you don't have to. There's
Yeah.
nothing in the scripture that's gonna say you got to do that.
Yeah.
You're not gonna find it. And praise and worship is a big thing. For my wife and I, it was like, all right, the music has to be good, but also the lyrics need to be on screen, just so now we can sing along. We want it should be a worship experience, and the worship
For
team is
sure.
just leading worship, right? Now, for me, and this is just me, because I grew up like you did. We was in the South. Gospel music was huge, and the most fun I had recently in terms of gospel music, I got to go to the reunion tour with Kurt Franklin and Yolanda
Oh,
Adams
I so
and Fred Hammond and the Clark sisters. I mean, it was amazing. Marvin Sapp was there as well. So like that was awesome. Churches really ain't even singing that no more. Like the
thinking
younger
like
ones,
that.
they're
Yeah.
doing all CCM. They got acoustic guitars up there. Is the music glorifying God? Yes, but I,
Yes.
I do I do think that there has been some
Some hard
change.
hitting gospel. We missed that
Yeah,
hard
we're
hitting
missing
southern
some of that
gospel.
gospel
Yeah.
music. And it's
Some of
like,
that, so it like whether or not it is some soulful music in
mm-hmm.
traditional gospel that we are missing
And we're
from a
missing
lot of
that.
these new age praise and worship millennial churches.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like it's whatever speaks to you. Like I think it's very important to find a home that is comfortable to you. There are still churches out there that put you in a choir robe, and there are churches that have a stage, and then there's churches that are kind of in between where they're like trying to figure, trying to be a little more progressive still holding into their foundation. I like whatever it is for you. I just think it's important. Um,
Yeah.
I try to explain that to my cousins because they're like, I don't really, I can't figure out like what church. I'm like, you need to go experience then. You need to go out and find some churches. You need to go on Google and find churches near me and go and try service. Like, be a guest, be a visitor. Something's gonna speak to you eventually. And when I was at Howard, I tried like 3 or 4 churches. And when I came to LA, I've been to a number of churches out here just because LA is a different scene of church out here.
Yeah, yeah.
um, but I have tried quite a few, and then I finally found one that I felt very at home in, and that's all it is about for real. This is where you feel at home.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, finding a church is it's one of it's one of the most difficult parts about moving in this business that people don't really talk about. Because
Finding
like
a church home.
finding a new church home, because every time you get a new job in this business, you now have to go find a new church home. You know,
Yeah.
for us brothers, we got to go find a new barber. Like it's a lot, and
Yeah.
and I've done that a handful of times. And
Okay.
when I got down here, even when you have a life change, sometimes you change churches. So there was a church that I was going to, and then once I was getting married, it was like I'm gonna have to change churches because this church doesn't have what we're looking for in terms of a marriage ministry. That's gonna feed the both of us together as a unit. It was great for singles. It wasn't great for married folks.
Wow.
So yeah, so it was like we're gonna have to find a new church, and that gets
Yeah.
tiring. Like that gets really exhausting.
Yeah, it is.
I'm curious how that was for you. Every time you had a new stop and a new place to go, you had to go find a new church. What was that like, and how did you not get frustrated with that process? Or maybe you did.
No, I definitely. Well, when I was in Texas for a couple of years. So Texas is really easy to find a church. I mean, again, we talk about Bible Belt Central there. So, I luckily just kind of got lucky. I started going to one of my coworkers' churches. Didn't really enjoy it there, so I started looking on Google and Yelp. I just would type in like um AME churches near me or Baptist churches near me, and I would just go sit. But I sat at one service, and I really enjoyed it. So, for me, like it's not. It's not something that I'm just like used to doing, like, especially because as a kid growing up, I always knew that I wanted to find a good church home. And so I felt like the opportunity to go and experience at different places was kind of thrilling for me. Like, like, okay, well, let's see what this church is talking about, like, I think that was a fun thing for me to do. Like, oddly enough, like people had different experiences, but my experience was I like everywhere I went, like I'm like looking up, like black churches near me, like churches, whatever, like and I'll just go and I'll be a visitor and I'll sit in and I'll see if I liked it, and if I liked it, I'll go back. I've always wanted to teach a Sunday school class or something, like just having some kind of involvement, a deeper involvement. That takes time. That takes organic growth. That takes, getting comfortable and getting to know and figure out. Um, and that's probably the only thing that saddens me about this situation is that, you just don't get to ever get so familiar with something that becomes your home. Like you always know that this is very temporary. Like and I go into it with that mindset every time. Like I know that this job is temporary, but I need a temporary home to where I can go and get my spirit filled. And that's just kind of how I took it on. Luckily now though, the church that I feel like LA, I'm gonna be here for a while, and the church that I'm at now, like I'm very, very very, very adamant about. They have so many ministries: women's ministry, children's ministry, service ministry, volunteer. Like there's just so many things to get involved in, and just I like now that like we have been consistently like members of this church, like it feels like my partner's already in men's ministry, like our women's ministry starting up in the new year. So just things that like what I've wanted to do, I'm finally getting to experience now with the church, which is really, really good.
Good, 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 good. Well, we are running out of time
Yeah, for
here
sure.
on the Believers Bench. We thank you for joining us. And one last thing before we get out of here, just tell us what has the Lord been telling you? What has He put in your heart going into 2025 that He either wants you to do or focus on or just meditate in?
Yeah, I think for me personally, this has just been a year where I feel like God is telling me to cut out all of the distractions, really focus in on what's in front of you and just keep going. Like, there's so many things that people want to change about themselves or change moving forward. And, I just feel like now this is the opportunity for me to really start to focus in on what I have already, like taking those things, because I've never felt I've never felt permanence yet in my career, you know? I'm starting to finally feel like there's some stability in this career in the industry, and there's some, final steps ahead, and I'm just really trying to um stay locked in. That's just it. Like, I'm not trying to set some kind of unrealistic thing for me. I'm really just trying to focus in on what I have right in front of me right now.
Awesome. All right, that's a beautiful word. I like that. I like that. Get rid of all the distractions in 2025. Well,
Yeah, and
Courtney,
focus on what you have.
yeah, that's beautiful. Courtney, thank you so much for joining
Yeah, thanks
us.
for having me.
We took up a lot of your time,
No, you're
but
good.
we,
Thank
we
you.
started going. I always say, like, if the Holy Spirit gets moving, we just gonna start talking. So
That's so good.
we thank you so much, and we thank everybody out there listening or watching wherever it is. If it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, if you enjoy this conversation, you want to see or hear more of them, go ahead and hit the subscribe or follow button and share this with a friend or two, because one share can change a life. Until next Wednesday, you guys be easy and be blessed.